have a question.
Yeah.
Dolores, at 91 years old, or young, because actually my husband Jimmy and I I was telling him we're doing the event. He goes, Dolores keeps looking younger and younger every time we see her. I mean, it's like all of us are getting old, and she's getting younger and younger.
It's because on the Zoom you can't see the wrinkles.
So, do you feel like the activism and your participation as a servant in all that you do is really like the fountain of youth? That's the first question. And the second question I wanted to ask you is, some people, when you're watching these people like Tina Turner that talk about, what they went through in life, and this activist, what they went in life, and they're doing a retrospect. Is, well, do you have any regrets? And they go, oh, I don't have any regrets. I would do it all over again. So the first question is, do you feel that the activism is like a fountain of youth? Because it obviously brings a lot of vitality to you, in my opinion. And the second question, again, just to repeat it, is, what are your regrets? And on top of that, your accomplishments, your greatest accomplishment.
Well, I think all of us here on the Zoom, because we're all activists, all of us here, and I think that we all agree that when you are an activist, that gives you a lot of energy. And often what I like to say is that you don't have time to think about your own problems, because you're too busy, trying to do something to change the world. And we know that our personal problems will take care of themselves one way or the other, eventually. So if you're focused on trying to help other people or get other people to get, well, because an organizer, what we're doing is recruiting and trying to get other people so that they can help other people, okay, to kind of spread the work. And so you don't really have a lot of time to dwell on issues that might depress you, etc. Also, I'm a vegetarian, everybody.
Oh. How long have you been a vegetarian?
For almost 30 years now. It's been a long time. Yeah.
Well, Caesar was a vegetarian too, right? A vegan?
Vegetarian.
Yeah.
He's a vegan.
Yeah, vegan.
I was a vegetarian for the first half of my life. Puros frijoles y papas.
You didn't know you were a vegetarian.
Yeah, I got a little pissed when I got old enough to buy meat. It was no longer in fashion.
Dolores, and your regrets? What do you have a regret? And what is your greatest accomplishment?
Well, I mean, in terms of regrets, I think but Lise can back me up on this one. I wish I could have done more for my kids when they were growing up, because I had such a wonderful life. I had the dancing lessons and the music lessons, and, I played the piano, played the violin. My mother bought us symphony tickets to every year to go to the symphony. I got to see all of the great dancers, Carmen Amaya, the Danilova, Alicia Markova, all of the great, all of these wonderful, wonderful things. And I was a Girl Scout. I had got to go to San Francisco to hear all the jazz when I was a teenager and a young adult. And my kids didn't get any of that. Yeah, but and as Luis knows, in the union, it was just work, right, Luis? Sun up to sundown. We hardly had time to do anything except go watch Luis. Luis was our Broadway, okay? That was the entertainment that we had, and everybody looked forward to it because it was once a week on a Friday night that we all got together, all of the strikers, after working hard all day from sun up to sundown, chasing strikebreakers at night, going to their homes or labor camps, wherever they were at, then being on the picket line in the morning, like out there at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. And so Luis was the entertainment that we had, and he kept everybody's spirits up so people wouldn't get depressed.
In some ways, your positivity, Dolores, and the positivity is really a key to health, I think, in that sense. Comedians live a long time. Those that don't take the comedy on themselves, but they live a long time because to laugh it requires a transcendence. Mm-hmm. And to be a good organizer, you have to transcend the immediate problems. And I think that is the quality that you hold. in yourself, and then you serve as an example of that. The arts are very fulfilling in their own way. It's we used to say, we still say, from the very beginning, that anybody can be an artist, because the creator has imbued us all with the ability to create. So if you can tap into that, you don't have to be famous, you don't have to be rich. If you can be creative in some way in your life, you are giving yourself more life. And so that is the value of the Teatro Campesino, in a sense, is saying you don't have to, you didn't have to go to college, to be an artist. You're there.
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea then that if you're positive, and the word posit means place, in a way, it's knowing your place, not in the sense of stay submerged and keep your head down, just knowing where you are and what you have to do. And it's what I meant about the generations. I mean, you've lived 91 years, Dolores, and we can get, I'm 80, I'm going to be 81. And the longer you live, the more of a perspective you get. And I get more of a perspective on the 20th century and how it is that all of us that ended up in Delano at that time. It's because Delano was a lodestone. They were developing King Cotton and King Grape, and they needed labor. And so my family, my mother and my father, came from Arizona as kids. They came with their and my dad was an orphan, but he came with his mother and his brothers and sisters, because they used to send trains to get workers to come because they needed them to pick grapes in Delano and to pick cotton. And so the whole business of agribusiness was using us as a source of cheap, stoop labor. And that's still the problem. The narrative has not changed. It's gotten wholly focused on Mexican labor because it's so convenient. But the Filipinos were part of that. Of course, Black people were part of that. The Okies were part of that. Anywhere that they could get cheap labor, they got it. And that's the narrative that has not changed. And in that sense, it's important to tell these stories and for people to know their own story, how they got to where they came from. Your story, Dolores, in Stockton, I think, is dramatic, I mean, you knew Larry Leong, way back when.
I organized him.
There you go. AGWA, right? The Agricultural Workers Association,
I organized it in a house meeting.
I mean, and then also how the leaders of the AFL-CIO did not respect you, right? At the beginning, I mean, when you were trying to organize the beginnings of AWOC, they wouldn't give you the credit and the respect that you deserved because you were a woman, frankly. I mean, that's sexism, But you transcended that. You didn't let that stop you. You came to Delano and you worked with Cesar and you did what you had to do. And I was very taken with your example. You were 35 years old when I met you. And you were a young woman. I mean, and I was saying, who is this person? When I first heard you speak at San Jose State that time, when I came to talk to you about the teatro, I sat there and I listened to you and I was awestruck. I said, who is she? Man, she's really articulate. She's not a farm worker, like any farm worker I've ever met. And the fact is that certain things came through. You were a person of your generation, but you were an American. You were born here. So was Cesar. He was born here. And I was born here. And that gave us an anchor. We couldn't be deported. They couldn't threaten us, with deportation. The hell with you. We're Americans. We're gonna know our place, posit ourselves. We posited ourselves in California. We posited ourselves in America. And you see, you cannot kick us out. We're gonna hear, and we're still here. You're still here.
Aquí estamos y no nos vamos.
Y no nos vamos, right?
I'm gonna digress for just a second. That was beautiful. Thank you, Liz. So one thing that Dolores and Bruce have is, we all need to have a hobby aside from the hard activist work. And the other day, Dolores and she called me one night. Dolores calls me, thank you, Dolores, like almost every Sunday night. We talk for about an hour and we would talk about life stuff. And she says, and I said, Dolores, what's that music playing? She goes, oh, I'm listening to jazz. And Bruce and Dolores have this connection of jazz music. And they both have stories of Charlie Parker. And Bruce, I wanted you to share some of your stories with Dolores on jazz. But if Dolores, you could start. One time we were sitting down and you were telling us about you had met Ella Fitzgerald, you saw Billie Holiday, and all of these folks, and just your connection on the music, because the arts is, you always talk about social. arts have to be a part of social justice because the music energizes us and the arts energizes us as well as activists.
Well, I think I say my claim to fame, is that I met Charlie Parker. But that was the only time in my life, and I have met a lot of really famous people, that I was speechless. I didn't know what to say after I met him because I was so starstruck. I mean, I couldn't, and I am not known to be a quiet person. I couldn't say anything. I just wanted to, kiss the ring on his finger if I could have, But he's such an incredible musician, and of course, he died very young, as we all know.
Well, that was one of my most favorite evenings in my career. A few years ago, a few of us held an event for Farmworker Justice in Los Angeles with Dolores, and we went out to dinner, just I think 4 or 5 of us, and we're sitting there, and Dolores and I both share with each other that we really like jazz, and she tells me that she met Charlie Parker. I couldn't believe it, just he was such a genius, and so that these two geniuses' paths crossed was amazing to me. And I just loved the connection. I also think it may have occurred the year I was born, but I'm not sure.
Also, Bruce and I have another connection. He likes good wine.
Union.
I wanted to just go over to Kiki, Enrique Castillo, and Kiki. You come from Calexico,
Right.
Calexico, and you grew up as a farm worker. I grew up in Yuma, and I also grew up as a farm worker. And so, tell us about your experience as a farm worker. How Dolores, how you crossed paths with Dolores. Luis also told us how he crossed paths with you. That used to pick him up at the airport, when he was, you were his student.
In a classic 56 Chevrolet.
There you go, 56 Chevy, man. Yeah. Was it blue? Blue, eh?
It was a kind of silver blue.
There you go.
It was the first car I'd ever bought. It cost me $150.
Wow.
Still wish I had it. I was working with my father in the fields ever since I can remember, from the time I started walking, probably into my sophomore year at Cal. But there were no unions at that time, obviously. We were working all kinds of weather. Imperial Valley, in the winter is cold as hell, in the summer is hot as hell. We did asparagus, tomatoes with pesticides, cantaloupes, lettuce, carrots, and then we went north to the cantaloupes and nuts and grapes and figs, you name it. So we went as a family, and we always traveled through the desert, the Mojave, because my father was very intimidated because he didn't know very much English. He was intimidated of traveling on the freeways because he couldn't read the signs. So he always traveled through where he knew best, which was the desert. So you can imagine there were probably 6 of us in the car with all our valises and all our clothes on, with no air conditioning, traveling 500 miles in the summer. So you can imagine what we smelled like when we got there. And on the way back too. So, but I actually met Luis at Cal when I was, after the Third World Strike, which is when they started the Third World colleges. I wanted to take acting because I had already gotten into the drama program at Cal. And when they started a Chicano Studies department, my counselor said, "Oh, I hear you like acting." And he said, "Well, this guy that's coming who has really good connections to Hollywood. Little did I know it was a total antithesis. But it was a great experience, and obviously, after we started working together and put that theater company together, Hijos del Sol,
Yeah.
Luis invited me to go to one of their shows, and as soon as I saw it, I said, "That's what I want to do for the rest of my life," because everybody there was somebody that I could relate to. Everybody was code switching at will, English and Spanish, and I saw my tios on stage and my grandparents, myself, and then the stories were so inspirational and very dramatic, and the style, which was comedia and kabuki, you name it. I fell in love with the process. So I was lucky that Luis invited me to the first Tenaz workshop in San Juan. And I went there, and luckily, Cal was starting a new program called Theater Without Walls. Well, because of that program, it was, you actually had to be in the art form that you were studying. So there were no grades for the class. You had to present documentation of what you were doing. So I had taken a multi-track recording class in San Francisco with the engineer for the Grateful Dead. I took a master acting class at Berkeley with a director from Hollywood, and then all the work that I did with the teatro, and then the Flor del Pueblo work, the album that we recorded, all of that went into my presentation, and I had submitted for a BA in performing arts. And it was one of those, your panel was there, all these professors, and you did your presentation, and it was a thumbs up or a thumbs down. There was no second chance. When I presented it, one of the guys, they were kind of quiet, and one of the guys said, "Why didn't you apply for a master's?" Because, I mean, really, you try to show a master's to a casting director, they'll laugh you out of the office. What the hell? Show me your resume. Show me your headshot. What have you done for me lately? It's like, here's my diploma. So, but anyway, that's a brief history.
Wow.
But the work with the teatro was that's where I learned how to play guitar. I picked up all kinds of tips on how to direct, how to work with actors, how to make mats, how to make sets. You had to do it all because there was nobody else to do it. You couldn't hire anybody else. It was cheap labor there too.
Wow. And Pepe, do you have any thoughts? Anything you'd like to ask? And
I do want to say, because you asked me about Dolores, is when I heard about Dolores before I met her. And I remember asking about Dolores, and she said, and somebody said, "Well, pues está chiquita, pero está picosa."
I first met Dolores at it was Antonio Hernandez asked me to do an event at Valdez, and it was Profile and Courage for Hilda Solis. They decided to do the reception on the West Coast. And so just like this all who's who of everybody from the DNC, and Dolores walked in, and they wanted Caroline Kennedy. We were setting up a photo op with Dolores Huerta, Antonia, Hilda, Caroline Kennedy, Gloria Molina, and somebody else. And then I told George Rodriguez, who's this photographer that I always have worked with for the past 25 years, I said, "Hold on." And they're looking at me, and I ran across this room in the Crystal Ballroom at the Biltmore Hotel. And I said, "Miss Huerta, you have to be in this shot. It's with all these," and here she comes like that. And we're running through the crowd, and we got that photo. And that's when I met her. The second time, we were at some event, but really when I connected with Dolores was at a Farmworker Justice event. I was working with AARP. We were sponsoring it. She was receiving an award. I walked over to her and I introduced myself, and she said, "What sign are you?" And I said, "I'm an Aries." She goes, "I'm an Aries, and Caesar's an Aries." And where are you from? I said, "I'm from Yuma." She goes, "Caesar was from Yuma." And so we started to talk, and she gave me her home number, and I called her, and because this, I don't think you had a cell phone at the time, Dolores. And she said she was starting a foundation, and I was at ARP, and we, connected right away. We started to sponsor a lot of the things with her. We put her on the magazine, and we just became really great friends because we connected. As really, really great friends, and we've been working together for, I don't know.
I want to give you my version.
Okay.
There was a farm worker march in Los Angeles. Remember, they used to do the annual marches down there in LA, and so this guy is over there, and he's got a camera, and he's over there, and he wants me to go over, and he wants to interview me with the AARP, I think, and
Yeah.
he keeps pestering me, right? And I'm trying to get away, and then he keeps pestering me. No, come on, please come and do this. I really can't. I have to leave. And then he keeps back again. And he must have finally, about the fourth time, I say, okay, this guy's not going to leave me alone until I go do his little interview for him for the AARP. I guess us elders, we have to talk about AARP. And so I finally go over there, and that was Damian, okay? Damian is an organizer, okay? And that's why we're all here right now. Because Damian is an organizer, and he will not let you go. Once he wants you to do something, he will keep after you until you do it. But on the other hand, the benefits of his friendship are so huge and so great. And I'm so grateful to David because he is, wherever he's at, he's always supportive of the work that we do with the Dolores Huerta Foundation. Whoever he works with, he makes sure that they give us a big donation. Hear that, Bruce? Okay. I mean, David is a true friend. And I know I see Pepe smiling because I know David's there. You're there for him, and he's there with you. Same with you, Belle. Same with you, Kiki. David is somebody that I've known David probably less than I have a lot of other people, but I consider him. In fact, my kids say, "Your son, Damian, is calling you." He is now part of the family. All right.
No, that's not what they say. They said your son is on the phone, and they, which son? Your gay son. Okay, I'll take the call. Anyway, if I interrupted you, and then I think we got Bell asked.
A couple of fast ones is, first of all, this piece tonight should be in every high school for every young girl to be able to do this presentation at all the drama awards, and because it would be incredible to have something like this. And Luis gave the best workshop I ever did when he came. I was at the Mark Taper Forum, and he did this whole, and I never remember the name of your exercises, but it's from the Aztecs or the Maya, where the numbers from 1 to 10, where you make out the number 1, the number 2, the number 4, and it was just an amazing workshop.
1 through 20, Pepe. It's called Theater of the Sphere, the Vibrant Being. I have a book coming out in July.
Okay.
It's Rutledge Press. It'll be out in paperback and hardback, and it's in galleys now. And we're very happy with it. But it's the work of the last 50 years of El Teatro Campesino distilled down into the aesthetic of Theater of the Sphere.
Well, let us know how we can promote it and how we can do an interview and get the word out there.
Definitely.
If you're willing to do one of these, with the book, we
consider it
great.
You guys should know what it was like when Luis showed up in New York City, because he came to town with Zoot Suit, and it was with the whole regalia of everything he represents. He just showed up and took Broadway by storm. It was huge. I mean, I remember saying opening night of Zoot Suit at the Winter Garden Theater, packed. The mayor was there. It was like a million birthdays and Christmases. It was so celebratory. And he brought all of his history with him. It was huge. And I remember, in New York, the Cuban, the Dominican, the Haitian population, the Puerto Rican population really were taken aback by your energy. And I think that the workers in all the Latino communities in New York and New Jersey, Long Island, and up, in New Haven and all along the East Coast were affected by what you were talking about in the press about the Teatro Campesino and the Farm Workers Theater. Anyway, it was a bridge, and I don't think that bridge would have happened if it hadn't been for Zoot Suit coming to New York.
Yeah, we were right next door to Birdland, Dolores. We were right next door to Birdland. The Winter Garden is just a half a block from Birdland. And Ruben Blades took me down there to introduce me to Birdland.
Wow. Yeah.
And the thing is that the whole Zoot Suit experience is what I call cultural fusion, and it's the fusion of African American and Latino culture. That's the Pachuquismo. It was jazz that set the pace for the Pachuco. So it's no coincidence that Dolores was honored to meet Charlie Parker, or that Cesar was also a jazz fan, and Richard. I mean, that whole generation was moved by that fusion that happened, in America. And continues to happen, but I mean, so that's why we ended up in New York. I mean, we had to go to the very heart of it, right? We had to go to Broadway.
Hey, Luis, and then all of you guys came to the boycott house, remember?
Yeah.
And Richard made adobo for all of the folks to eat there.
Oh wow!
And so we were lucky enough to have the come to our boycott house, because we were right in the middle of the great boycott right then and there. And
Richard was something else. Let me tell you, something else.
They had a university without walls at State University of New York, and that's where I got my college degree. It was also University Without Walls, while I was doing the Yoruba play at Intar in Spanish with Batak moms.
I bet the casting directors are just thrilled when they see the diploma.
I want to say one thing about Kiki, that I was. If you all know, I think Dolores and Luis might know about Maria Sabina. I wasn't with her, but I was there in her village in 1967 and had the magic mushrooms. And I've been on.
Tell us about it, Pepe. Come on.
But what I'm alluding to is that Kiki is the most brilliant, most educated of all the Latino actors that I've ever met. And I wish that someday he could eat a couple of mushrooms and we could film him and see what comes out, because he has not come out yet. I want to see him.
Drink some pulque.
I wanted to close because we have to tape still Bruce and Belle, but I wanted to just tell you something about the UFW, and obviously you will know more about this than I do. There's a couple of observations I wanted to make. When Dolores and I sat down at AARP, we talked about that we wanted to, put our quotes, to set the record straight on the quotes. And I said, well, one day we'll get together and we'll do this with Dolores in her own words. And it needs more work. But, one day she showed up to AARP and she goes, I'm here, let's do it. And I had a full day of work that I need, and I just changed everything. We sat down there and we hammered it out, and that was a great experience. And I'm really grateful because we have 3 iterations of this. But the UFW, Luis, and Dolores, they really started the whole trend with using celebrities or utilizing celebrities to be able to get the word out on the farm worker movement. I mean, Selma Hayek, Martin Sheen, some just big names. The genuine messengers of the farm worker movement are people that have it in their heart. And, the way that you all work, and I've worked with a lot of different celebrities, is just people that just show up and for a photo op. But there's people like yourselves that really, stand in with the movement. And I think that's really amazing. And the work that I learned throughout the process from all of the work that you all have done is that, there was this, where Pepe's from, I used to represent Johnny Canales, and in 1996 or something like that, I worked a little bit with Selena, and at that time there was a woman, a young girl by the name of Eva Longoria, who was Corpus Christi in 1998. And I got her, and I said, you got to do the farm worker movement. And then we go to Dolores, and, Dolores and everybody was able to help and, do that. So I just, this whole concept about celebritydom and activism really started like with what you were doing, I think, Luis, because, and then rambling a little bit, you have discovered so many people. And we did the actual research in Belmore, and I just did the surface research. We came up with like well over 1,000 film projects and television projects that the people that you put in and discovered have now done, and they're all AMPAS members, they're producers, they're professors, they're just the consummate actors and activists. And it's just really amazing that we're able to do this, and that you're here on, that I don't know, I'm just blown away. This person who came as a little kid from Yuma to LA and didn't know anybody, not one person. So I'm really.
I do also want to acknowledge Belle. Belle is the publisher. 30 years she's been the editor-in-chief and publisher of Latin Heat. I think she's magnified every little production, every little short film. And anytime someone's on network, Belle is in there. She's got quotes. She's got links. She's been the publisher, and she had conferences at Universal. So not enough, again, about women, not enough is said about Belle Hernandez. And I'm happy to be your friend, sweetie.
Thank you. I love you, Julie.